Welcome back to my channel, and today is the first day of the series of the wiring rebirth. As you can see, this mess right here is unacceptable. You know, you walk up to a car meet and you're like, oh dude, a Jay-Z, that's so sick. But then you start noticing the little details like what the hell is that? You know, what's with all this wiring that's everywhere? You know, it's just messy. It's not presented. You know, like this ground right here and the ghetto tube right here, you know, literally sponsored by Home Depot. And as you can see, I have no filter guard, big no for the turbo, you know, no exhaust. I mean, you can see my wideband sensors just sticking out there. Like, how am I even getting readings? So on this series, I'm gonna be fixing up all the ghetto-ness, but first of all, we're gonna focus on all the wiring. I made the mistake when I first was doing the wiring in this car is I cut the body harness of the Rx-7 harness. Now, I have been able to get it to work properly. All my lights and everything, tail lights, turn signals, all that jazz works. And it's great, even my horns work. But what I don't like is presentation of it. You know, the presentation is just awful. Literally, I get myself a 1 out of 10 on presentation. I mean, like, what the fuck is that, you know? So basically, I'm gonna focus on this part of the series right here, and I'm gonna show all the Rx-7 guys out there. This is a S4 chassis right here. I'm gonna show all the Rx-7 guys out there which wires you can connect whenever you're doing your swap. So let's get to it. First, you should always disconnect your battery whenever you're doing any wiring things, because you literally do not want to fry any of the wires you got in here, because if you do, that's just going to give you a whole world of hurt. Taking all of this stuff apart and just scream through it or watch it all, but it's going to be fast forward. Enjoy. Emphasize that you really should mark your stuff. Like, these would be ground and these would be power. I'm not going to mark my powers because I only need to mark my grounds. But if you're wondering, you know, which fuse to use for each, I already know that these are my ECU, my coils, and my injectors, so I know what to use for those. As for the other accessories, such as the ignition accessories and whatnot, you don't really have to worry about marking them, because I'll show you how to do it later. The ghetto license plate with all this stuff on it, the 3 relays for the injectors, the engine, basically the whole engine setup, so the injectors, the coils, and the ECU. I'll explain why I have them like that. So I have all 3 relays for the engine to 1 ground, and that's a kill switch inside the cabin. So if anything ever goes wrong, these 3 will kill it, and these are the main ingredients to have engine run. So you don't have one firing while the other is not firing, and you know, they all just cut power. So that's exactly why I have 3 relays doing that. At this point, it is time to start cutting the looming. It's time to start cutting all the zip ties I used to keep the looming shut. I use looming that wraps around the wires. So my first focus is to get these relays behind the firewall. My focus is to cut all the zip ties I used on my looming. I use looming that wraps around like this, and my first focus is to get these behind the firewall first, and then it should be all downhill from there with the fuse box. On this long road ahead of us, I'm taking out this old connector right here, this old fuse panel. This controls everything in the body harness of the engine. engine bay, including your cluster, your HVAC unit, your radio, everything, all accessories is what this thing right here controls. And we're gonna pull this out. We're gonna chunk this, and we're gonna get our own fuse junction panel, and we're gonna make our own, because I'm gonna show you guys how to make your own, because this has a lot of wires you really don't need, and it's just gonna be a mess. And we're about to, we're probably gonna cut this in half, like cut it in half the amount of wires we're gonna be using, because we're only gonna need the essentials. You don't need all that, like, emissions, whatnot. As well as I'm gonna show you how to do power windows, locks, the central locking system. I installed one into this car. Being able to use the stock switches to turn on the lights and whatnot. I will show you how to do it all, even the horns. I'll even show you how to do it. And this is the first step to getting a pretty simple harness set up for the body and whatnot. So this is gonna power all the stuff, including this right up here. When you pull your e-brake, it's gonna pop up there. It's gonna be a really long road and lots of new wiring for me, but it's gonna happen. All about working smarter, not harder. So what I've decided to do is, instead of trying to pull out the entire thing, I'm gonna find which wires run to the harness, which lead up through the console to control each individual unit, and cut those wires and leave them there while I pull out the rest. Because pulling the whole thing out will require me to disconnect those things. And honestly, I really don't want to do something like that, because I just don't want to pull apart the whole console and the dash and everything. So let's find those wires and let's cut them. Rx-7 harness is pretty simple. It comes with a bunch of things that tell you which is which. And on here, you're gonna need the red and blue wire right here with the dots on it. You're gonna need the red wire right here, and it's gonna have dots on it as well. You're also gonna need this third red wire right here that has black and red on it. You're gonna need all three of those, so we're gonna keep those. You also need the white and red wire right here. This is gonna be your power wire as well, and this is gonna be powering all your ignition stuff. So these are gonna be your main wires to power the entire interior of the car. So on my previous wiring, so there's relays inside of the back of the console right there, and these relays trigger when you do the on position. That's what these wires came off for, and I use that for my power windows and everything else. What is great about the Mazda is that when you take apart the console, or the where the steering wheel is, the cover, there's going to be the same color wires there as these. And basically, when you do all these wires right here, you can do constant power and ignition power up there. So that's what we can do. But good for us is that when we cut the we're gonna not have to splice the ones that are up here, which is good, because I don't want to ruin all the wires right here, because then it may make it difficult for different platforms, whatever you decide to go with, LS, JZ, RB, whatever you decide to choose. So all these wires right here, most of them are useless, and we can use another fuse junction board like this one to wire for constant as well as ignition power. I finished pulling out the harness. I haven't cut any wires yet. I ordered a bunch of stuff on Amazon that should be here by tomorrow, but I am going to call it a night and get refreshed and do it tomorrow. It's about 1 a.m. right now, and I'm pretty tired, so I don't want to mess up any kind of wiring, so it's good to take breaks. Good idea after you finish with the night to clean up all the mess that you've made and everything. So always clean up after yourself every day. It'll make tools and bolts and nuts and everything else easier to find when you're done. And when you start up the next day, or whenever you want to start again, you know where to look. So go ahead and start cleaning up afterwards before you call it a night.